Good morning. Welcome to SharkCast Pod, catching up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. This is SharkCast, and it is a big week in Sharkland, like most weeks, but we have a huge game coming up against the Cowboys. We have NRLW starting, and coming off a bye, it's just lots of things happening. The new merchandise stores opening up, which Kieran's very excited about. So we'll get into all of that plus a bit more on this episode with Kieran. Now, Kieran, I would like to say welcome. I've got some intro music for you. Please welcome Mr. Kieran Fraser, fresh from the Sutherland to Cronulla run, whatever it's called.
Bit of bright eyes. Is that because today's the first day of my life as an athlete?
It is. It is. What's the race called? The Sutherland to...
So it's called the Sutherland to Surf, and apologies, my youngest daughter is right at the front of my door. She's on her way to dancing lessons, so she's going to obviously be quite excited about that.
No, I need to apologise because I've lived in this area for 3/4 of my life, and I can't remember what the name is. So, of course, that's what it's called.
So it's the Sutherland to Surf. So you start at like the car park where they do the markets at Sutherland, and then you run down there, basically the Kingsway, all the way into Cronulla, and then down into Green Hills, the car park where the dog beach is. So I think it's 11.8 Ks or something like that, and it was horrible.
Is this your first major run?
Yeah, so I've never run that far before. That's my first time actually doing it. A few people from the gym signed up, and I said, all right, well, I'll give it a crack too. And I travel a lot for work, so I hadn't been able to get the training in that I wanted to do it. But, once you say you're going to do something, you kind of have to do it, right? So, yeah, it was quite confronting halfway through that. When I hit about Miranda is where I kind of thought, oh, this is a bit longer than I thought. And then coming into Cronulla as you're going up that hill, where that Natara's fish and chip shop is, that hill is quite underrated.
It's a bit like your younger days when the night rider stops at some place because it's got a mechanical issue and you got to walk the rest of the way. I mean, very similar.
I think so. And it did take me back to those days, where you'd stumble home from a pub or something like that. But it was just one of those things where I think if you obviously are a runner and things like that, it's not that big of a run. But if you're not a big runner, you get halfway through and you go, I should have been more prepared for this. So feeling terrible today, but hey, I did it. So I've got a medal to prove it.
Anyone in Sharks gear? Any Sharks players, Sharks staff, any former Sharks?
I saw Josh Morris out there on the track.
Did you boo him? Boo.
No, but I do remember the day where it was announced he was released. I walked into a coffee shop in Caringbah and I was decked out in that Sharks retro jumper. That's like bright blue and the old Sharks logo. And he kind of looked up and you could just tell it was like the day I think the NRL got cancelled with COVID. And I think he was just expecting a spray because everyone was angry at that time. But I left him alone. I saw a bloke in a full Tigers jersey, which I thought was strange. And obviously, like you get pretty sweaty. So those 80s jerseys, I don't think would be quite optimal for that. But there was a lot of Sharks hats I saw.
Nice.
Not so much jerseys.
Well, coming off the bike here, we are in third place. So top four in third place on 28 points, all by ourselves. Melbourne's on 34. You would probably think they're getting at the moment premiership from here, but you never know. Penrith looking pretty good in second place on 30. Roosters in 26 points in fourth. So between us and everyone else. Manly creeping up on 25 points. That 1 point for the draw could go either way for those guys. And then the rest of the crew, we're hoping probably won't make the top four. So it's our spot to lose at this point, Kieran. What are your thoughts on where we sit currently?
I think it's such a strange ladder. Like, I don't really think teams 5 through 8 can do really anything in the finals. And then you start looking down there and you look at 9, 10. I don't think they can really make a dent. And then you start to get the Souths and the Broncos at 11 and 12th, right? So I think that's kind of the issue. If one of those teams can throw in a bit of run of form, same with the Knights and Warriors, I guess, as well.
But they'd have to do a hell of a run there to get in.
Yeah, and I think even the Broncos can only lose like maybe 2 games between now and the end of the season.
At the most, maybe 1.
Exactly. And so you kind of look at it and you go, well, you're going to have to be top 4. to again get the second chance. And then you look at that top four, right, and you go, right, well, Melbourne they've beat the Roosters. Penrith always give us troubles. You kind of want to finish in that top two to try and get yourself a home semi. But geez, pick your poison with that top four, because I think those three other teams are clearly the three best teams in the competition, along with the Sharks. We've proven we can go with two of them. Anything can happen in September. They've just got to be fit.
Yeah, I mean, I want to finish top two just to get all the arguments going about Shark Park or not. I love that argument. It drives me bonkers, and I get off on it at the same time. It's this weird kind of thing that I love hate. But I mean, Melbourne, we've done it, but you wouldn't want to do it. Penrith, you don't want to do Penrith at all, really. And I mean, I guess you're taking the Roosters at Allianz, right? We'll go out there in our thousands, and if it's there, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the home ground. But it's a tough one. But to win it, you got to beat them all, more or less. And we're in a good spot. We're in third. I mean, our star halfback is out. We're not sure when he's back. The run home is decent. No one's really complaining about the run home. I would imagine this week is one of the tougher games, but it's still very winnable, in my opinion, which we'll get to. But it's going to be tough in that top four, isn't it? But hopefully we stay there. There's no guarantee we will. We've got to keep winning. But the draw's in our favour. I think a bunch of the other teams play each other as well, which is going to be helpful.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Melbourne and Penrith play each other. The Roosters have got a bit of a cruisier run in. I don't think the Roosters have a hard game left in their schedule. But again, when I start looking down at the 5 through kind of 12, a lot of those teams are playing each other.
How's Manly looking with the run home?
So Manly's got Roosters, Raiders, and then Warriors at home. Then they've got Tigers and Bulldogs. So they've only got one home game left in the next 5 games.
Okay.
So they're going to be on the road a little bit in the next 5 weeks. But again, they will finish the season against the Sharks at Brookie.
That's going to be pretty epic. The other smoky I might have in here, I think ahead of the Cowboys, is the Dolphins. Like, they should have beaten Penrith at Penrith yesterday. They were really great. The young halfback had the time to get the field goal, and he went for the attacking kick to the left, to the right. I've watched it numerous times on the replay. I don't know what he was thinking. He had a lot of time to get that field goal. He chose not to. So I still rate them, though, and I think that if they can go on a bit of a run, then they might be a chance to maybe finish 4th, depending on the other teams, of course. How do you think we're looking this week going into the Cowboys game overall, Kieran? We haven't got the team yet. We can talk about that. We think that the young fella Ison's going to get a debut jersey. It's not locked in, but he did get removed from the New South Wales Cup team. So
did he?
Yeah, he did.
Wow, and they played Hamlin-Uele too, right? So
yeah, so look into that how you want. Like, it may mean nothing, or it could mean everything.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty telling the fact that we're so far down in fullbacks that we just took him out of a game like that, where they just sort of said, look, you don't pull that guy out of a game for no reason. So I think that's a really telling sign.
Yeah, and I imagine Hamlin-Uele will play this week, right? And he's there for fitness. So they're not overly worried if he goes down, there's another prop, etc. There's not another fullback.
And they've got a lot of front rowers, a lot of middles, right? So the value for them is to get the time into the legs of Hamlin-Uele, but there's no value in playing Ison if we've got no other fullbacks, right? And again, that's the path of least disruption. So that's really exciting if he does get his nod. I mean, I can't wait to see that if it happens.
So let's assume it does happen for now. What do you think the plan is? Is he just going to play his natural game? Does he have to play like Will Kennedy? Is it somewhere in between? What would you be advising him to do?
I think it's a unique situation too, because we don't have our first string halves together. You know, Nico is definitely our first string halves. People can say what they want, but I think it's going to be one of the cases. All right, well, let's play to your strengths and really help the young fella out. It's only going to be 1 week because Kennedy will be back in 2. So again, the path of least disruption, like, just go out there, play your natural game. just make sure the communication is really strong from fullback. I think that's really one of the key things. And Kennedy does a lot of work in defence. There's been some talk this year around his attack, and we haven't been doing as many of those sweep plays that we've done in the past. But his defence this year has been amazing. There's been so many times where he's popped up everywhere, and from the highlights I've seen of Ison, he's very similar. He's everywhere. Like, he just pops up. He really does remind me of like a Pappenhausen, where you're just like, how did this guy get into this space, right? And the last game that he played, I think he scored 3 tries in New South Wales Cup. So he's proven that he can match it with grown men. So let's hope it's true. And I saw some reports this week that the club was close on locking him in on a long-term deal as well. So again, when we talk about the roster management, that's going to be an interesting space, because Kennedy can start talking to other clubs from November 1st.
Now, he reminds me, and I'm only saying this from a Cronulla perspective, because all the comparisons you make are accurate too. He does remind me of Nathan Gardner in the sense of being young, small stature, a lot of energy. But I would say that he plays a more classic fullback role. It's not as kind of bouncing around and zany and kind of ad-lib. It's a bit more structured, but he has that speed for sure.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the same size, I think. I'm not good with heights and weights and that kind of thing, but he's a smaller guy. He's still young, still growing. But that's who he reminds me of from a Sharks point of view. But as you say, the Pappenhausen one is probably a little bit more glamorous these days, of course, to compare him to. I'm really looking forward to his style of backing up. It's a feature of his game, but he also has creative skills. He's decent under the high ball. Everything I've seen, he doesn't shirk away from catching the high ball. So I really think it's the right move, bringing in a trained fullback. He's been the understudy of Dylan Edwards. Like, he wasn't necessarily next in line, but that was the future. That was the path. If you stick around for 7 years, you'll be the next Dylan Edwards. And he very much trained that way. So he has that about him too. I should compare him with Dylan Edwards, because that's basically who he was going to be, Dylan Edwards Part 2.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. If he gets the nod, I haven't got the official word yet, but if he gets the nod, I think he can actually, and I'm not putting this pressure on him, but I think he can actually help us win.
Yeah, and I think what we're kind of saying here with these different players is the floor is here, which is maybe a Nathan Gardner, and the ceiling is up here, which might be a Pappenhausen or a Dylan Edwards. And where he lands in that spectrum is going to be based on, his effort and how he applies himself. But it's a great story from a retention and recruitment standpoint. They've gone out, they've identified him, because they lost Chevy. They went out and these guys have been kind of battling each other in the lower grades for rep jerseys for a few years, and they went out and they got a like for like, because when they lost Chevy. But I think I read as well, when we first signed him, he grew up as a big Sharks fan as well. So
really,
really good to see that stuff. Yeah, there's something that I read about it, that he was a big Sharkies fan growing up. So he was super excited to come across. So hopefully that's true, and I haven't thought that up in my head.
I haven't heard that one, but that's exciting. Let's just go with it. He was a Sharks fan. So just looking at some overall stats for the NRL as we go into round 21. We did have the week off, but Sharkies sit third for average points scored. Third for tries scored. Third for tackle bus. We're fifth for line breaks, so all that stuff's pretty healthy on an average. Defensively, we're top 4 for fewest points, fewest tries. We're equal first with the Bulldogs for fewest line breaks conceded, which is pretty important. Top 5 for fewest missed tackles. So that's pretty healthy as well. Errors, we're top 5 fewest. Completion rate's fallen a bit. Probably the big thing that we need to work on is the discipline. So we're only getting just under 5 penalties per game, which is bottom 3. And we're conceding about 5.5 penalties, so to speak, per game, which is kind of bottom 5 as well. So I think if they can fix up the discipline, the completion rate, will get better. Sorry, did I say the completion rate fell? It didn't fall. We're top 5. I correct myself there.
I was going to ask how it fell during a bye week.
So, no, I was looking at something else. But completion rate is top 5. So, all the signs are pretty good, and if they can finish the year, the regular season, playing, I guess, the style they played against the Tigers, which I know is really dominant and one-sided, but if they can play with a good kicking game, good defense, and then the attack comes off the back of that, we know that, they're definitely in this comp to give it a shake. I mean, we know finals aren't our thing of late. We know Nico may not be there. If he is there, he's going to be pretty tender. But with this current team and the form they're able to show with those stats, I think on any given day we could give anyone a shake. They have to be in the right frame of mind. They have to be ready and up for it and play like their lives depend on it. But I think that if we get top 4, I'm willing to believe. I really am.
I think the Panthers and Storm, I think, are really the 2 best teams. I think there's a bit of a drop-off after those 2 teams.
Yeah.
The Roosters can turn it on, but the Roosters can also put in, a bad performance. And I think we're kind of in that boat too. I think the next few weeks are really going to be quite telling. If they can build up some momentum and, not lose these games that they're expected to win, which has been like a trademark of the Sharks for the last 5 years. Like, we win the games we're expected to win, and they can go into the finals with a bit of momentum. It's going to be really loaded on that top 4, and you need to finish in the top 4, and you need to win that first week of the finals to get a week off. What happens after then, who knows? Because we saw it the year we won the comp, is the Broncos and Cowboys played each other the week that we had off, and they went to extra time, golden point. They beat the hell out of each other, and the Cowboys were busted when we got them. And that first half, the Sharks ran out and blew the Cowboys off the park. And, a lot of people weren't expecting the Sharks to win that game. And we could end up in a situation like that. I think that they've just got to do a lot of work on making sure that the middles are fit and firing, and that they're in the right headspace, because as we get closer to the finals, there's going to be that noise about not winning a finals game. There's going to be that noise about Nico's coming back. How's he going to fit into the team, especially if they're doing well or if they're on a slide? It doesn't matter. It's Nico. So there's going to be a huge talking point.
Yeah.
They've just got to get themselves in the right space, and then we'll see how things shake out.
I'm not putting anything on the young Dolphins guy, because he's an incredible player. He's young. He's proven himself already. But the fact that no one is talking about that missed opportunity to win the game, to ice the game, making the wrong decision, compare that to our guy, who I know is a Dally M winner. He's our highest paid player. He's the face of the game. I get all that. I get the comparisons. But that's how that's how much pressure he's under from the outside world. And I just think it's kind of not fair. Like, to judge, we should judge these guys. We should judge these guys in their game, but also just let's spread it around. I can't believe people aren't talking about it. And I'm not putting shade on him. He's awesome. I'd take him in a heartbeat. But they could have won the game against Penrith. They could have finished top 4 because of that game.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's a lazy thing, I think, just to bag Nico. It doesn't matter what the result is. Nico could have, 4 try assists and everything like that. We could lose the game by a field goal, and everyone will go back and say, "Oh, Nico didn't handle it right." And until he has a performance in a big game and ices that moment, that's going to be the talk around him, unfortunately. But again, he's shown he can do it in the past. Like, that first season where he came here and everything was firing for him, like, he kicked field goals to win us games. He kicked sideline conversions to win us games. He can do it. It's just now we just need to see him ice those moments. And again, he's had some chances to ice those moments, and that's fair. I think it was the Bulldogs game was probably the big one.
Yep.
But again, I'm backing him every step of the way. Sometimes things just don't go your way. Sometimes you get in ruts. But again, he's a very good player. We're very lucky to have him, and I think he will turn it around. I can't wait for him to get back.
So on the draw, got it here, talking about games wanting to win, expecting to win. Cowboys away. I think that, I can see that we're underdogs already. We're it's close, but Cowboys are favoured, and I think that's a fair thing. I think Sharks at home to Rabbitohs, depending on what happens this week, I think we'll be favourites there. I mean, Souths, are playing some pretty bad teams and racking up some points. So I think that
Is Cameron Murray back for that game?
I don't believe so. I think you got 2 weeks.
Oh, I think, yeah. Well, did the Souths have a game on the weekend? Yeah, they did. So he would have missed that one. Then he'll miss this week's
okay.
game. So
Yep.
Cam Murray will be back for that. Is Latrell back then?
Not sure. If they're all back, I understand it might get more even.
It could be quite difficult, yeah. If they're all back and firing, but again,
But I still don't fear him, man.
I think we should beat South at their best, but Phil Mitchell always seems to pull one out against us.
Sure. So Titans away is, I think, difficult depending on the mood the Titans are in. Like we saw yesterday, they were pretty stinky against Manly, but we know that the week after that, they could be amazing. So I think that's a very winnable game, but not a given. At home, Newcastle, Members Day, triple header. I think we can beat Newcastle. I really do. I really don't rate Newcastle. I don't want to have this played back to me in a month's time, but I think we're favorite. I think we're favourites there. Wollongong Derby. I think if St George if St George can win a few games, I think they'll be favourites in that game. Winnable game, tough game though down in Wollongong. Warriors at home on a Saturday night. I feel like we should get that one. And Manly away. You would think no matter what, they'll probably be favourites unless they go on some sort of losing slump and slip out of finals contention.
And players could be rested that last week as well. You just never know on where the ladder is, where teams are sitting. You know, we saw it one time where the Sharks threw out like a team with like 5 players out in the last game. So you just never know.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that game. That's a summertime episode. But I hope that we get to Manly and it means nothing. I really do, because I would rather. I've said it before. I'm not really the guy that loves heated battles going into finals. I'd rather sort of not cruise in, but I'm somewhere in between. So I don't need to have a shootout at Brookie if it means nothing, you know. So that's the run home, and I think that there's a bunch of games there we should win, and there's some that are 50-50. And it will depend on the form of the teams as well. But I guess I'm sort of relying on that fact that we went to Melbourne with no one, and I shouldn't say that. We went to Melbourne with a team that was missing some spine members, got the win with a really gritty, great performance. If we can do that, I'm thinking we can go to Wollongong, we can go to Gold Coast, etc., and put one on. It just depends on what is happening that day, how they're feeling, etc. So it's not the worst run home, is my point, Kieran. Where do you think, without doing the math in your head, where do you think we'll finish right now?
Well, I don't see of those games that you mentioned, I would expect us to win 80% of those.
Okay.
Just based on the teams that we're playing. There's going to be some curly ones in there. I think the South game could be a bit problematic. The Cowboys can be problematic. So can the Dragons and Manly. But I expect that we should win the majority of those games based on the rosters of both of the Sharks and the teams that we're playing. I think we had a really golden opportunity to win the minor premiership this year. That doesn't mean I think that we're the best team. I just think that we had a lot of winnable games there that we've dropped, like the Bulldogs and the Titans games, for example. Those should have been points that we've banked. I think the minor premiership's probably out of our reach now, just because we'll be asking the teams above us to lose, a little bit too much. So I think they've really got to press on for that second spot, but that's going to be tough to get your hands on. But yeah, it's kind of that situation where do you want to end up round one? I don't think it matters, because you're going to have to play ideally either of those teams as you go through the finals. We saw it in 2016, the Sharks finished third. They beat every other team in the top 4. So yeah, I reckon we'll probably finish third.
Okay, and that at this point takes us to Penrith.
I think that'll probably be week 1 of the finals, is us going out to Penrith, which again will create that narrative for the Sharks don't win finals games. No hope in the world, backs against the wall. Nico, 1 game back, kicks us a field goal to win. Even I had to laugh at that one, just because of just imagining the meltdown that would cause.
It'd be amazing. It'd be amazing. I'm not going to say, we can't do it, because as I said all episode, I think that in the right frame of mind, seriously, if you're beating Melbourne in Melbourne and I love the guy, with Dan Atkinson as your halfback and Blake Brayley as his partner or vice versa, like, you can actually do anything with this team if you get them in the right frame of mind. So maybe it comes back to the coach and that kind of thing. I don't know.
I think the tough thing would be going to Melbourne twice in one season and coming away with victories down there.
It
I
would.
think that's a real tough ask. There's probably not many teams that can say that they've actually done that.
No.
So again, I think Penrith is the favourites to win the competition. They haven't had all their pieces. Once they get their best 17 on the field, like they're freaks and they're odds on to win their fourth in a row. So look, if you are going to play them, it's probably a good time that first week of the finals, throw everything at them and see where it lies. Because in that situation, you will be the underdogs. Nobody's going to rate you. It will be backs against the wall. And if you can't fire up for that and potentially get a week off, and then ideally you would be sending them to the other side of the draw where they would have to take on a Melbourne or something like that. You really do open up the competition, but geez, it's a tough ask.
All right, looking at the Cowboys this week, we play them 5:30 p.m. on Saturday. It should be a really good game. Cowboys are in decent form, so they've won, I want to say, 6 of the past 8 games. They had losses to the Warriors at Queensland Bank Stadium, or whatever it's called. And they also had loss up there to Manly as well. So the last 2 losses have been at home. One in a Golden Point win and one with the Warriors thrashing them by 30. They defeated Canberra. They defeated Penrith, although I think that was a Origin-affected game. And on the weekend, they defeated Canterbury, and Canterbury really gave it to them. It was a tight contest. So they're in these games. They're winnable games. There's no fear of playing them up there. We've got a great record against the Cowboys in general and a great record away to the Cowboys. So we don't really fear them as a club. Even in recent history, this team that we have now of the past 3 years, they don't fear going up there. So a lot of hope as far as that stuff goes. Where do you see the Cowboys being the most dangerous? Like, what don't you like about us playing them this week?
I really do rate the Cowboys back rowers. They're huge humans, and they do get a lot of points through them, and they will be running at Trindle and Atkinson. So that's going to be something where they're going to have to be really on. Drinkwater is rocks and diamonds. You never know what you're going to get from him, but he can absolutely spark something. And they've got really good finishes out wide too. So any half chances, they will be able to get the ball down, right? So I never feel comfortable when we play the Cowboys, despite us having a good record against them.
Yeah.
Take away that finals game. But they're a club that can turn it on. And I just think that there's something going on up there because they're so hard to get a read on. And you look at the trajectories of both those clubs since we met in the finals, a couple of years back, and we've had a better run than them. But, most people, when it goes into each season, rates the Cowboys much higher than they rate the Sharks, right? And you look at the stuff that Payton's done with those guys, and I think he's only won one finals game because they missed it last year. They're an interesting club. I don't feel comfortable against them just because they've got so many good players, and if they put it together, it could be really difficult. But they should get the W. It's a great stadium up there. I wish I was going.
He's a weird coach. Like, he doesn't mind throwing a spanner in the works. He doesn't mind a spray. He doesn't mind a bad interview. I mean, looking at the back line yesterday, he had Valentine Holmes on the wing with Jackson Pedot and Filiame Valet in the centres. The pack is decent, but I mean, I don't want to again have this thrown back at me in a week, but I was watching Taumalolo pretty closely. He played over half the game, made 92 meters, and he is on the latter end of his great career, like phenomenal career. Absolutely has torn us apart. Could do again this week.
Oh yeah.
But looking at their front row, Jordan McLean, 50 minutes, 84 meters. Jason Taumalolo, 45 minutes, 92 minutes. The big meters came from Lukey, one of the back rowers, 100 meters. The rest of the pack, not so much. Now, the backs, nowhere near as good as us as far as meters go. We had one of the centers get 100 meters. We had Val get 110 meters. So they rely a lot on their kicking as well. We've got to look out for Jeremy Nanai with the kicks from Chad. They're going to be doing it. He scores tries off that all day long, and the coach knows that. The players will be training for that. I look at the team that played yesterday, and it's like it's probably above average. It's above average team on paper. Like Drinkwater, hit or miss. Kyle Felt, solid. Don't really fear him. Val's not in his best career form. The halves, Tom Dearden, he can turn it on. I mean, Chatty's got his kicking game. I went through the forwards. The back row, as you say, pretty good, as well as Ruben Cotter in there as well. And the bench, workmanlike. So if we're on, it's a winnable game. I do believe that.
Yeah, the Cowboys are a bit of a flat track bullies too, right? So if they get their start right, if they get a good start, they usually look good. But if you can get the Cowboys down and get them chasing points, they can also drop their lollies and say this is all too hard. So it's going to be quite interesting to see again how the starts happen for us, because this is a momentum team, the Cowboys.
Well, I'm hoping that the plan to start well is now a thing for every week. I'm sure it has been the whole year. It just hasn't come to fruition, but I'm hoping that they're focusing on those starts. One good start against the West Tigers does not make a season, unfortunately. But start well, yeah, absolutely start well. But I really think it's a chance for our forwards to kind of get another tick in the column for them. I think that this is a game they can outpower them. We haven't seen the team yet, but if it's something like we think it's going to go, I think we're going to name a pretty good team, injuries aside, and it's just about us starting well, completing well, kicking. I want to see Trindle and Atkinson really dominate with their kicking, and I think it's a bit like the West Tigers game. Like, don't go too crazy in your own half of the football of your side of the half. Once you're in the other side of the opposition half, go for it. Do what you want. If Jesse sees something on, go for it. If you're on your own 20, I don't think so.
And I think that's multiplied if you have a rookie fullback in his debut game. And we will not want to be playing the game down at our end. We'll want to be down the other end in their attacking space and let him get some confidence from his work on the ball, rather than getting peppered with kicks and that. Because like you say, they're going to be kicking for Nanai. They're going to be trying to isolate Trindle and Atkinson in the lines and putting those up for Lukey as well, right? So again, we just need to get off our goal line because that's their play. They do that little pop kick and that's what they do.
Let there be no doubt that no matter how good the young fullback is, and he's good, they're going to pepper him all night from start to finish. If he catches 10 in a row, they're probably still going to go for the 11. That'll be the coaching instructions. Right Absolutely. Or wrong, for me, if I'm kicking to a guy and he's caught 5 in a row, I'm probably not going to kick to him again. I don't think the coach should go that way. I think he will just pepper him. Now they've got Scott Drinkwater. I mean, Val can kick a little bit. They got Tom Dearden, Chad Townsend. They're all good kickers of the ball, no matter what you think about them as overall players. So he's in for some catching practice, but from what I've seen, there'll be no issue there. And if one does spill, it'll be nerves rather than skill. Like he's got the skill to do it.
Yeah, and people are so quick to write off young players in their debuts and things like that. Like you think back to Ronaldo's debut game, right? Yep. And, it was massive concerns of will this guy, be able to shake a performance like that because he got targeted and, the circumstances of him making his debut where he was 18th, 19th man and, Dugan does an injury in the warm-up, things like that wasn't ideal for the preparation. But, teams will target him. You look at Chevy for the Raiders. The Broncos went after him in a game. Like, they just peppered him. And even the Sharks, when we played them down in Canberra, they went for him, right? And, again, he's a good player. He'll be back and, he'll build out a great career. Yeah. But, those first few games are a bit of a learning experience that these players go through.
All right, so looking forward to that. The team will be announced on Tuesday, obviously. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens there. I mean, look, they might do a smoky. This is just my own thoughts. I don't have anything to back this up. They might just name him in jumper number 22, just for complete taking the pressure off him as far as the media goes, because the media aren't probably going to necessarily jump all over that as a headline story if he's named in 22. And then on the day, you name him, beautiful, here we go. But they may not, because I know with debuts, they try and make them special. They give them the presentations, they bring the family and the whole thing. So maybe I think I'll lean towards they'll do that. But I think there's an outside chance, if they're all concerned about nerves or anything, they hide it until the day. It's not really Fitzy's style, though, so I expect him, if it's him, I expect him to be named in the number one. Yeah, we have NRLW on Saturday. I think it's 11 o'clock kickoff. It's Saturday morning, late morning. You know what? I should probably just look it up while I talk to you, Kieran. Let's be professional in our podcasting. It is the opening round of the NRLW starting on Thursday night with Knights versus Roosters. Yes, 11 o'clock this Saturday at Shark Park. We play the Cowboys. So that'll be our first proper taste of NRLW 2024. Can't wait for that. That team will be announced as well, I would imagine, tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Tuesday. But that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to watch this team. The squad they've got is really good. It's better than last year. And I expect this team with all their good health, to really have a shake at this competition. So that's Saturday, 11 o'clock. On Thursday night, Kieran, the new merchandise store is opening up, which I know has got your eyes spinning round and round and round and round and round. When I say Thursday night, I believe that's for the Diamond and exclusive higher tier members. They're getting a little window, which is their right, of course. Friday morning, I believe. Friday will be kickoff for the general public. It's down in the precinct. You'll be able to find it. Signs everywhere. The new merch store. I believe they'll have a limited amount of merch back at Cronulla. But from here on in, when you want your merch, you go down to the precinct. You speak to Barnesy, you speak to our friend Ash, who's there. A lot of great people behind the scenes. And all your Shark stuff will be there, just like in 2016, 2017.
Do you know where the shop is actually going to be located in the centre?
Why would you ask me that?
Because I mean, I go to that centre all the time. I'm there almost every day. The wife sends me to Woolworths to pick up things, so I'm always looking to see which store I think it'll be. I've got no idea which one I think it is, so I'm looking forward to it. But I think it's going to be great because it's going to be so handy, especially as they start to get that development finished. It's going to be such a good experience on game day when we finally get there. So fingers crossed. August 2025, is it? So that's 6 years almost since they closed it down. That's crazy.
Yeah. Our friends of the ET podcast, they spoke to Dino, and he had a few headlines there. And well, who knows? It could be before, it could be after. Let's wait and see on that one. But the important thing is, for now, the merch store will be open from Friday. You'll have to check about when they're open, when they're not open, etc. I've got no idea about that stuff off the top of my head. I have seen pictures of it inside. Adam Barnes sent me some photos. It looks awesome. And they'll have everything you want, Sharks-wise. And that's end of plug. Good luck to those guys. And I did make my debut at the Chinese restaurant. I had yum cha during the week, last week. Did we talk about this? No. Yeah, I had yum cha.
What was the best dish?
I'm going to put a little asterisk down and just say, when it comes to Chinese food, my preference is for lunch, dinner, especially dinner. So yum cha, I love yum cha. Love it, love it, love it. I wouldn't say I'm a veteran of the yum cha scene. So when it comes to dishes, I may struggle with terminology, but I had some sort of beef dumpling. It was like a flat guy, and it was incredible. And from a sweeter side of things, mango pancake, I want to say.
Yeah, that's a Yum Cha staple.
Yeah. Very well done. Food was well done. Service excellent. Atmosphere great because you're looking out at Shark Park. And I definitely recommend it if that's kind of your thing. It was cool. It was kind of not well attended in the first half an hour I was there, but then around midday, it really filled up, and that was, I think, on a Thursday maybe. It really got popular, and people were going there. There were football personalities. Gus Gould was there, of all people. It was quite exciting, and it's. I think once the whole precinct is ready, the club's ready, etc., all the shops are filled out, I think it'll be a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah. I think that's the issue with that centre at the moment. It's kind of a bit barren because it's usually dead. And I've noticed since they've opened up the Chinese restaurant, if you go there around lunchtime, especially on weekends now, it's actually hard to get a car spot. Whereas, traditionally
Right.
when you go to that place, like you just walk straight in and you get a spot like right next to the escalator. You're in and out in a few minutes, right? So I've got some friends that have opened up a shop in there. So I'm hoping it gets really busy for their sake. And yeah, it's going to be great because the vibe that's already started to create, you can just imagine once they've got the Leagues Club going. And, I have another friend who tried to make a booking at the pizza place there on game day, like
Yeah.
before. And apparently they were booked out for hours before the game day, right? So again, I want to check out
Ooh.
the sushi train there too. I haven't tried that yet. But yeah, we should try and hit that place up before a game.
Have you had the pizza there?
I haven't had the pizza there yet. So I've
Okay.
tried the chicken shop. There's always Sharks players in that chicken shop. And of course, I've tried the KFC.
Yeah, there's a K. I didn't know there was a KFC there. That's not my jam, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. There were Sharks personalities hanging out. The great Jeff Robson was around, friend of the show, and other staff members. I could see, just as you say, like when all the players get a bit hungry, they just go over for their chicken rolls and that kind of thing. I can see how that's a very popular short stroll. But overall, I think it. Yeah, I think it. I say this with no like authority over business, but I feel like it has potential to really do something, especially once all those apartments are finished.
Yeah. And so I don't know when that's due to be finished, but everything looks like it's coming along. I've heard there's been some issues with the actual development around some water issues that stopped some of the major tenants coming in, like the Meat Emporium, and there's a fruit and veg place that's supposed to be opening there soon as well. So, once all those things start opening up, I think it's going to be a really good atmosphere in there. And then just hopefully we can really nail the execution of the club because I can't wait. I mean, I moved down to the Shire, and then 3 months later they closed the club. So I haven't had it since I've been down here. So I'm desperate for it to open up.
What were your memories of the 3 months you had as a local?
Oh, I didn't actually go to it. So 'cause I just took it for granted. And then our friend RCB gives me a message one day and tells me, that they're shutting down the Leagues Club and moving the team away for like 2 seasons. And I had just had my first daughter at the time, so I wasn't across all the news and happenings that was going on. So it was quite a shock to me. But I think I got to like maybe one game before we moved, and it was the game against the Warriors where Sean Johnson just absolutely tore the Warriors apart. And then it was all downhill from there. Someone ate a bat.
To be fair, we do get those messages from RCB every 2 weeks, so.
Well, that's why I didn't pay attention to it in the first place. I just thought he was rambling again.
RCB, we love you, man. We love you. Genuine love, like proper brotherly love. All right, Kieran, before we get out of here, we got to play the hottest show on the internet, and that is Random Shark of the Week. This is where we quiz your sick mind about Sharks players of yesteryear, or, spoiler, who knows, could always be a current Shark as well. There's no rules here about not being a current Shark. Will it be today? I say a current Shark. Whee! All right. This gentleman was born on the 20th of September, 1976. His last playing weight and height was 180 centimeters into 82 kilograms. He's, of course, from parts unknown. No. I'm going to say he was born in played his lower grades in New Zealand, and I'll leave it at that for now. He debuted in first grade in round 19, 1996. So not only had grunge broke, grunge had also sadly passed away by then. 1996, debuted in first grade. His last match was in 2003. So first match, 1996, he played against Manly at Brookvale. His last game was in 2003, where he played against the Warriors, and it was at Shark Park. This gentleman played 51 first grade games. 51 first grade games. Technically, he played for 3 different clubs in first grade. The most games he played in a season was in 1998, and that was 17. He scored 11 tries in that season. In 1998, he played 17 games. That was his most games in a season, where he also scored his most points and tries. He played 13 games for the mighty Cronulla Sharks. 13 games. Scored 2 tries. I can tell you that he scored his tries for Cronulla against the Dragons in a local derby, and in a local derby loss, and against West Tigers, he scored a try at Shark Park in a win. That were his 2 tries for Cronulla. Any thoughts yet?
We're going back to that 2003 game versus the Dragons. We've had a player from this team before, so I'm trying to. I wish I looked up that 17 that day, but I'm trying to cast my mind back because I remember distinctly watching it. Because Channel 9, I don't know why they did this, but they used a drone, and they probably didn't have drones back in 2003, but like they did the big long shot where you could see the water. I just remember thinking, wow, I didn't realize that Cogra was that close to the water, but that was just me being young and silly. So no ideas so far. Keep throwing me some clues, please.
No ideas. He was a back, not a forward. He was a back. And I'm going to say, given that he started in 1996 and finished in 2003, he was a bit of a journeyman, although, as I say, only 3 clubs that he played at. But he has that vibe about him. When he came to Cronulla, he was a bit of a journeyman, I think.
So, how many years was he at the Sharks? Can I ask that question?
Just the one.
Just the one. So,
Yeah.
So 2003. I think
Yeah,
who were our backs back then?
If he was there in lower grades, I couldn't tell you. But as far as I'm aware, just 03. And definitely 03, he was the only year he played NRL for Sharks.
So 03, I'm just going to rattle off some of the names that come to my head from our back. So there was obviously Peachy. There was, I think, Matt Reek, Franze. There was Youngquest, Hassan Saylor. There was Andrew Emilio, but
probably
Laloa Milford.
Jared was there.
Jared Anderson. Wow. I have really tattooed that part of my brain over, so I did not remember that guy, but here he is. I'm guessing he was a centre winger.
Any of those names you just mentioned come to mind? Like any of them real chances of what I'm talking about here, or are we going to move on?
I think Laloa Milford's probably the most random one, but I think, did he play that many 51 games? I'm going to lock him in. He's my answer.
Is that because I'm not a good host? Is that why you're locking it in?
No, it just because I'm going back to 96. So I remember he played for the Tigers, and then he went away, and then he came back. He played for the West Tigers too, so that's your 3 clubs.
Kieran Fraser, your random shark of the week is Laloa Milford.
There we go.
Well done. Well done. I chose him because I have a memory of him signing, and we have to be careful what we say on these videos because they sometimes can reach places where people who we're talking about see it. Doesn't mean we're censored or anything, but you always got to be respectful, in my opinion, where it's necessary. And I do remember, so one of my very best friends, Balmain Tragic, then into the West Tigers. He didn't think Laloa was necessarily one of the great Tigers of all time. And so he disappeared from 01, 02 in the top grade. And then the great coach of Chris Anderson brought him back. And my friend found that very humorous. And so I was sort of not expecting a great deal out of Laloa. He played 13 games, which is awesome for us, scored 2 tries. I don't remember him being shocking in what was a shocking year, so all respect to him. And he's a random Shark of the Week, so we pay him a lot of respect. We hope that he's doing well wherever he may be. He played Canterbury Rugby Union when it was his junior club. That's why in case you had some sort of weird trigger, I didn't want to say that necessarily up front. But Canterbury Rugby Union was his junior club, as far as I'm aware. Last game was against the Warriors in round 19. So he played a good chunk of that season, considering we didn't play finals that year or even come close.
So there was a highlight package. It might have been on like the Sunday Roast or the Sunday Footy Show. I can't remember which one it was back then. But it was like, this must have been maybe 2004 because they used the season before as highlights. And there was a highlight of him getting turned inside out. And I think it was like Gasnier or something like that running away and scoring a try. And it's like every week when I would watch that show, I would just see the back of his jersey as he was turning to chase. I think it was Gasnier. So yeah, he's got a special place in my memory. I think it was either him or another West Tigers winger. I can't remember who it was, but it might have been Milford that stopped a game for a headache. And it was like played on the Sunday Roast for years because they just thought it was hilarious that this player was staying down with a headache. I don't know if it was Milford, but it was a West Tigers winger in that era.
I do remember the clip. I don't know who it was, but I do remember that clip.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Good times. 2003, mate. The gift that keeps on giving.
That'll be a summer episode.
We can do a real deep dive on that one.
That needs strong analysis.
That time where was it Paul Mellors or was it Peachy that like went down in like the open field versus the Warriors with like the try line open? Yeah. I think it was Mellor. Was it Peachy?
Mellor did the silly offload which they scored from.
That's it.
Peachy, I've told this story a million times. When Peachy made the break, my friends and I, including Cam Webb, Dr. Cam Webb, we were pretty close to the front on that side in the half he was running towards. And he literally was looking at us. I felt like he was waving at us as he ran. Love the Peach. Love him. Wouldn't change him. But
so after that, though, everything went downhill for like the next 10 years.
Well, to really summarize it, because we don't have time now to do it, and we will get into it one day, is that Chris Anderson, he rolled the dice with the local juniors, and then in his head, that was it. They can't get it done at the top level. You're out of here. I'm going to bring in all these dudes that you're only going to hear of, except for Tall Sean, who's playing gigs around town and is an awesome musician. But, we're going to get rid of Nick Graham. We're going to get rid of Dean Treaster. We're going to get rid of Peachy eventually. And, just all the BS that happened. It was all, as you say, from that game because they couldn't get it done.
Where do you reckon Don Tweedle is doing right now?
Hopefully he's going to see Tall Sean at a gig or something.
I've just chucked him into Google, and it looks like he's an area manager for a company that I can't pronounce. There you go.
Okay, that's cool.
One of the greats.
Yeah. So, 03, we'll get to it. When my mental health is at its strongest, we will get to it because it will require...
It'll be like an underbelly episode, right?
I mean,
we'll
thinking
just break
about
down all the different things.
Yeah, but thinking about my life as well, and I've never, ever thought about this until this moment. Pretty much the worst time of my life was 03, 04. And I'm now going to add everything else that I blame at that time, including myself. I'm going to add the Sharks to it, specifically a mature coach that we brought in because, yeah, no wonder I'm so down on that year. Yeah, it was a bad year, man. Oh, my God.
It was just
03.
made so much worse though because Preston and Martin Lang and John Lang
I'm
were over at
aware.
Penrith, and
I'm
Penrith came
aware.
from last, and then they just took like our three guys and went from last to this
I'm aware.
unbelievable attacking team that just won everything. And Preston almost lost his life in that off season as well. Going into
Which
03,
we,
like
which
it was a
we,
crazy ride.
which we, and I know you're not, but I'm just saying we don't joke about that because it's
No,
true and it's ridiculous. And I have to say also, and not making this about me coming out of the black hole I was in all honesty, I remember going to a 04 Sharks game. It might have been against Canberra. And it was the first time I kind of had put myself back into society after a time out. And I remember just being so happy that Stewie Raper was in charge. They were kind of, slowly building back. I didn't think we were going to win the comp. But I remember having a great time. I think it was against Canberra. Can't even tell if we won or lost. But 03, man, whew, that's a spin out.
there's a deep dive for us in summer.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be like, a series, like a multiple episode series.
If we could find like the yearbook, do you remember they used to release those rugby league yearbooks? But they would have like the dates.
I've got all that. Yeah.
So you could get all the headlines of all the different things that happened because like if we actually relived it all, the craziness and the players we moved on and the players we brought in, like it's a wild time. And then all the other stuff that happens, with Matt Johns and
All right. Because we've said it now in public, we'll have to invite RCB along as well. He can come along for the ride.
He's the 03 expert.
Believe me, he's got some opinions on that. And we will get to that in summertime, which will be here before you know it. So that's another thing you can look forward to. We're also going to have a whole bunch of stuff in summertime that I'm planning. So we'll get to that. Kieran, thank you so much for your time this morning. We always rock hard early in the morning. I said we rock hard early in the morning. And Joe Biden out. Gone. See you later. Arrivederci.
I saw that this morning. It's not unsurprising, but it's big news. But is it too late? Who knows?
Yeah, probably it is. I don't want to get too serious on this show, but I did see the meme, and it was Kramer doing the "I'm out" with the money on the table with Joe's face on it. So we'll leave things there, Kieran. Let's enjoy that win on Saturday night against the Cowboys, and we will talk to you, no doubt, shortly after that. If not before, you never know what's going to happen in this world of SharkCast. But actually, you're on the road a little bit too, so we'll have to tinker around with that. So if you don't see us on a Monday morning, don't freak out, but we'll get to all that another time. SharkCast Pod signing out. Kieran, you're a ledge. Congratulations on your run. And everyone else, we'll get back to you as soon as we can with episodes. I have no doubt this week, sharkcastpod@gmail.com. Find us on the socials. DM us if you like. Email us. Just follow us. Like us on the YouTubes. We need to be loved, so love us, please. Thank you very much. Up, Cronulla. Let's go to Townsville. Bye-bye.